Hello, good morning everybody out there, and welcome to Newsbusters newspaper review here today, this Monday morning, the 4th of September 2023. My name is Jennifer Mosu, and once again, welcome to the show. So as usual, we run through the newspaper headlines, especially the frontliners on some national dailies here in our studios. So I'll start with the papers just before me. I'll start with the Daily Independent. Yes, from the Daily Independent this morning above the masthead, it says LP calls for cancellation of Edun Council poll. Of course, we know in Nigeria what the norm is, especially after elections, parties, when they feel they are defeated or don't get what they deem right to them, there's always quite a ruse they rock up over that. So the writer to that story says, Obaseki says election outcome reaffirms PDP's dominance in the state. It's quite a read there on the front page of the Daily Independent. Besides that story, we see Huriwa asks Tinubu to deal with naval officers complicit in crude oil theft. That's the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria. So they're asking for the president to wade into the issue of some naval officers who were allegedly responsible for crude oil theft aboard some vessels that they were seen carting away. All right, still above the masthead and moving down to the major story of the Daily Independent this morning, we see Forex liquidity constraints to linger despite reserves boost. And this is despite their assertion seen in our external reserves as at the end of August, that it seems that it is not enough to respond to the demand in Nigeria's foreign exchange market. For a better view of that story, you should check out that headline. All right, we see other stories still coming up from the Daily Independent. Serap sues Tinubu over banning of 25 journalists from Aso Rock. This was as a result of journalists who go to cover media at the Aso Rock Villa. They were told to turn over their press passes and being disqualified from getting into the State House. But we ask, is it the right thing to do? Media, news, everything concerning information should be free and fair, because people do have a right to know what is going on along the corridors of power. But after these journalists were taken out of a pool of other journalists, it has been deemed unfair, and the media is still in a haze why this should have happened. You can get that story on page 7 from the Daily Independent. We also see domestic investors maintain dominance on NGX as index is up to 3.4% in August. Everything seems to have gotten to a crescendo in the month of August. So that story is on page 7. FG identifies states that may be impacted by flooding. Still on page 7, there are quite a number of states that might be prone to flooding. So the federal government has identified the states, and of course we know most times it's states close to coastal areas or those states that border where there are dams and a lot of water reserves. So you can check out the pick of those states on page 7. And on page 6, the president and 4 ministers have jetted out to India today to attend the G20 summit meeting. This is a meeting of world leaders where a lot of policies are, taken, and influence over decisions in countries are made. So he's up to that summit in India, and he was accompanied by 4 other ministers, and it's on page 6. Still on page 8, NDLEA intercepts drugs at Lagos airport, arrests kingpin. There was a massive raid on outbound opioids and a number of narcotics yesterday at the Muritala Muhammad International Airport in Ikeja, where NDLEA operatives were able to stem the movement of those illicit and illegal drugs out of the country. And it didn't just end there. You know, the tip-offs from that raid led them to arrest several drug kingpins who are in a cartel in Nigeria, especially in Lagos, and most of them were picked up. Of course, a lot of other successful raids were led by the NDLEA across the country. So for the NDLEA, I think they're doing a very mighty good job of the raids and of course the publicity that comes with it. You can get that story on page 8. And we see a picture there of the Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake, and with him is also a director from the Ministry of Mines and Environmental Compliance during the maiden press conference by the minister to unveil the roadmap that's plans for transforming the solid minerals sector. This was in Abuja on Sunday yesterday. And a bit of that story, the minister has also issued warnings to illegal miners all over the country that an end has come to their mining activities. If they want to continue mining, then they should be able to join associations and cooperatives that enhance the unity and fostering that, you know, we have safe mining practices and people can do this as a legitimate business. All right, and it's there. Federal government gives illegal miners just 30 days, 1 month to join artisanal cooperatives. Say solid minerals will contribute 50% to Nigeria's GDP. Yeah, solid minerals everywhere are a good revenue boost. So I think this is great, but it's not just about saying it, it's about acting on it. So let's see what comes out of that place. And GTCO reports profit before tax of 327.4 billion naira in half year of 2023. That's a lot for publishing before tax is even taken. So I believe they've that bank is going on strong. All right, those are the stories from the Daily Independent this morning. And moving on from the Daily Independent, Central Bank of Nigeria, this is coming from this day, CBN, the federal government recorded $17.8 billion inflow, 1.4 trillion naira fiscal deficit in Q1. Those figures are quite let's say, what will I say? It's a bit on, you know, a current thing. The inflows are quite, would I say, increased, and we have some deficits, so it's not really balanced, but we hope things can get better in that field. And above the masthead of that newspaper, Mike Yao says, why colleagues are against my leadership. Moving on, we see a picture of several members of the All Progressives Congress. From the left, there's the governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, his Niger counterpart, Mohammed Bago, the Kogi State APC Deputy Governorship candidate, Joel Salifu Oyibo, the APC National Chairman, Abdullahi Ganduje, Kogi State APC Governorship candidate, Usman Ododo, Ogun State Governor and Chairman of the National Campaign Council for Kogi State's gubernatorial election, Prince Dapo Abiodun, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his choir counterpart during at the inauguration of the Kogi State National Gubernatorial Campaign Council in Lokoja on Saturday. All right, we see Tinubu, ministers, industrialists depart for G20 summit today. A number of industrialists, that's businessmen and ministers, about 4, went to the president for the G20 summit in India. I talked about that earlier. All right, the major story from this day newspaper, Buhari saved Nigeria from graft, says Garba Shehu, says his success in fight against corruption unprecedented. All right, That's a personal opinion, and there's a picture there that shows the Deputy High Commissioner of the United Kingdom, Chief Economist and Vice President, Africa Development Bank, Professor Kevin Urama, and the Country Director of the World Bank, Shubham Chowdhury, during Enugu State's Investments and Economic Growth Stakeholders Roundtable, which held at Enugu over the weekend. Those are the details from this day newspaper. And I've got The Nation next. And from The Nation, above the masthead, 3 stories. Illegal miners get 30-day ultimatum to vacate sites. That's coming from the Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake. Marketers, why we can't break NNPCL's import monopoly. That's coming from IPMAN, Independent Marketers Association of Nigeria, the people who market petrol and all that fuels. All right, and from page 6, NMA cautions health workers on incessant strike as people's performance to determine teachers' promotion in Ondo State. So that's quite a lot for Ondo teachers to grapple with. Your students have to show that you deserve, some merit or, promotion. So it's not just about you coming out being the best teacher. It has to be impacted and shown on the pupils you're handling. And true, the NMA is quite right in cautioning health workers, doctors, nurses, and other health practitioners on going on incessant strikes. Yes, we know the country, living conditions, labor conditions are not what it is, but when these things become regular and constant, it takes the savor out of the action. All right, and below the masthead, we see Tinubu targets global capital in India as he leaves for the G20 summit. The Delhi summit is seeking for the collaboration of Indian businessmen and other Nigerian counterparts. It's one of the reasons for attending that summit, and which also seeks economic developments, which of course is what will take center stage at that summit in Delhi. All right, you can get that story from the front page, and it continues up until page 4. And the major story there, TUC snubs NLC strike calling workers out of work premature. We will continue to dialogue with government to ease subsidy pain. The problem with Nigeria, I think this is what this article should be rightly titled. I mean, how can one faction of labor totally go 360, turn back on another faction of labor? People are crying daily that living conditions, especially even feeding, is becoming, something so huge for people to handle. So TUC snubbing NLC to go on a 2-day warning strike, I think that's unfair. That's not showing true patriotism and comradeship. At this point, everybody should be looking for how to put heads together, join forces together, and make statements. I'm not talking about mere utterances, statements, actions that the government will know that, people's cases need to be looked into. Yes, some states are saying they've gotten palliatives, but how does that translate into the average worker's minimum wage? I mean, nowadays, I don't think anybody, even the least paid, can have that minimum wage utilized in more than 2 days. No, it's too much. Nigeria's economic problems is actually sinking everybody in. All right, and above that story, we see foreign reserves. Naira appreciates unstable oil outlook. Well, what we see on papers, how is this reflected in real life? And some states are named here, and it says flood risk rises in Lagos, Nasarawa, Bayelsa, and other coastal communities. I talked a bit about that. So, of course, we know the flood-prone states. So if you are around there, if you're on a lowland, you might want to consider relocating to higher ground or, somewhere else so that you don't get to become a victim of the floods. And Kaduna hires 7,000 vigilantes to battle bandits as 9 people have been killed in Ogun and Osun road crashes. Check out that story. It comes out on page 28. And that picture there shows protesters demanding the exit of French troops from Niger's territory in Niamey yesterday. This time around, it's not just the expulsion of the French envoy in the country. It's about the troops leaving Niger completely. Yes, I know in the past there had been some agreements of training and all whatnot with Nigerian forces by the French, but I think that relationship has lost its savor and the romance is over. So the people don't want anything Western in the country. They're demanding for outright leaving and removal of these former colonial masters of theirs, and also people who have been in several alliances with them when it comes to trade, economy, warfare, and all whatnot. So that story, you can get it when you pick up a copy of the Nation newspaper. All right, moving on from the Nation, I've got Nigerian Tribune here. Above the masthead, we see federal government targets 20 trillion naira annually from tax revenues, and the FG is also set to review 6 trillion naira tax incentives given to entities, and it says the $3 billion Afrexim bank loan is on course. Of course, we have what we call tax holidays and tax exemptions from the government to certain companies and individuals, but is it these people, after that time frame, what do they even get to impute and inject into the economy? So probably that's why the government is set to review these incentives that have used to be given out. All right, we hope that 20 trillion naira target will be met. All right, the major story from the Nigerian Tribune this morning, it's on a case of corruption. Who is accusing who? And former President Muhammadu Buhari says I was on a rescue mission that's relaying it to corruption. And former Minister of Justice Mohammed Adoke is severely blasted by Muhammadu Buhari, who says his statements on the petroleum industry bill and Ajokuta claims are bogus. And Adoke is saying that ex-President Buhari does not have an idea of what he's talking about. He says his tenure was one of the most rife with corruption and decadence. So it's a matter of claims and counterclaims and so many allegations. But you can get that story on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. And in Edo State, PDP wins, and the Labour Party and APC kick over those results as a matter of the election at the local government level. So you can get that on page 22. On page 24, 15 local government areas, 224 communities have been affected and displaced by floods in Niger State. And in Plateau State, there's a crisis in the local government where the court has restrained the Inspector General of Police from allowing APC elected chairman into council secretariats. That's on page 22. That's quite a lot. I mean, so many states and their issues. All right. The major story, the United Kingdom granted 132,000 visas to Nigerians in the first half of this year alone. You can see those statistics on 28. And Governor Oyetola visits Lagos ports today. Sorry, not Governor Oyetola, he's the minister. Visits Lagos ports today for inspection of collapsing quays. You can get that story on page 3. And that we also see Many injured as event center collapses on guests in Ekiti State. I think I saw a bit of that news. Quite sad for something so laudable to have turned that way. That's why we say people should use standard materials, not substandard things, and get real architects and town planners or building planners to do this thing, not just draftsmen, trying to build up your house plan. And the picture there shows the governor of Lagos State in the middle, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the secretary to the state government, Bimbola Salu-Hundeyin, who's on the 7th right, permanent secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, this is Olatokunbo Umhai on the 7th left, and beneficiaries of the Lagos State Palliative during the official flag off of palliative distribution to the vulnerable in Lagos State on Sunday. The vulnerable, not for everybody. All right, that's it with the Nigerian Tribune. And from the Punch newspapers, quick ones. Above the masthead Forex, there's a picture of the Minister of Aviation there, Festus Keyamo. Domestic operators lament over 40 aircraft being grounded aboard orders of Minister Keyamo. And on page 7, states NLCs and TUC order workers to join nationwide strike, which is meant to be officially flagged off tomorrow, being the 5th of September 2023. And on page 26, federal government plans mining firm pushes gold and 6 other minerals. All you prospectors, you can check that out on page 26. And the big story, tribunals decide Tinubu 25 governance cases in September. Tribunals reserve judgments in Lagos, Sokoto, Kano. Other parties have resorted to prayers in the courts. ABC not under pressure, says the party's legal advisor. Labour Party, PDP, confident of victory. Those are pictures of the president and I believe some of his team or people who have been dragged before the Elections Petitions Tribunal. All right, and GTCO grows profit to 347 billion naira. Assets of GTCO now worth 8.5 trillion naira. Waste managers urge Sanwo-Olu to probe accumulated debt. And marketers get foreign investors backing for 30,000 gas stations. I'll just take one or two sports stories from the Punch newspaper. Parceiro accepts pay cut and retains his job as a coach of the Super Eagles. The Portuguese has, led and misled our players, but all in all, he has decided to retain his job and take a pay cut on it. And the Nigerian Cricket Federation targets more players in Akwa Ibom. They're trying to recruit a lot of players. All right, I think that's all I can take from this morning's dailies. Hope you enjoyed that quick review. And don't forget, you can get more news on our website at www.newsbusterng.com. And you can rewatch this. We're on YouTube at Newsbuster, so make sure you go there, share, like, subscribe, and of course our social media channels on Facebook and Twitter. You can get more news and exciting updates there. All right, from me, Jennifer Mosu, do have a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Have a fruitful week. See you tomorrow. Bye now.